New tonight, feeling hot, hot, hot. Power woes persist in North Andros, where residents are frustrated after they were left in the dark for nearly 10 hours. And another major cocaine bust over the weekend. But are cocaine seizures up? Our News investigates. Plus, the head of the Christian Council calling on the Bahamas to lean more on God and less on international pressures. And then in our news at 7:30, a step in the right direction. A crime consultant praises the new gun amnesty program. Find out what he had to say coming up. Our News live at 7 starts right now. Hello all, welcome to Our News Live at 7. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Jerome Sawyer. We begin tonight in North Andros, where frustrated residents are trying to cope under the weight of unbearable heat and long power outages. In some cases, outages are said to be as long as 10 hours. Our Berthany McDermott gets us started tonight.
The sweltering heat made matters worse for North Andros residents as their power supply challenges continue following that fire last week Wednesday. Area Administrator Beverly Larimore tells us some areas were powerless for hours.
Areas have not had power from last week Wednesday. There's one particular area that has not been restored, and if they did have power, it was only for an hour, I think. There are other areas. Yesterday, we went almost 10 hours without power.
Larimore says every area is different.
The people are frustrated. It's also July. It's very hot. The kids are experiencing this severe heat. We're trying to keep hydrated as best as possible.
On Friday, Bahamas Power and Light officials said residents would be on a 4-hour load-shedding schedule. However, residents say that wasn't the case over the weekend. Meanwhile, local government chief councillor Donna Mae Pickstock says the outage is connected to other utility services.
Once the power goes, everything else goes along with it. The water, the telephone system, everything goes.
In a statement, Area Member of Parliament Leonardo Lightburn said BPL faced some issues with getting diesel for the generators, adding that one of the generators was down. However, he assures the matter is being addressed. He says BPL is also in need of a bucket truck and another vehicle to move around cables and servicing equipment. Meanwhile, Larimore says the outage will hurt the bottom lines of many businesses.
Offices can't open. The food stores are running on generator. Our clinic is running on generator. Airport and our police. And this is going to be very costly to these persons and these government agencies because the fuel is going to be expensive.
Despite the circumstances, officials say BPL has been working to restore power. Larimore says the community has been helping one another. Meanwhile, appliances are being damaged.
Plus, with the off and on and the surges, we are now having damages to equipment. So fridges are going bad, air conditions are going bad.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Thanks for that report, Berthany. Well, late this afternoon, Bahamas Power and Light releasing a statement acknowledging they are having challenges following the fire at the plant. The power giant says it remains confident the difficulties will be rectified soon. The statement goes on to say their crews continue to work around the clock to supply North Andros customers. On to some other news tonight. Police investigating a suspected suicide after an 18-year-old girl was found dead. She was found unresponsive inside her home in southwestern New Providence just after 4:30 this morning. She was found hanging inside a closet with an electrical cord around her neck. Police are appealing to members of the public who may be struggling with issues to call the Community Counselling and Assessment Unit at 323-3293. That number again, 323-3293. Well, from court today, 2 men out on bail facing a new murder charge. Prosecutors allege 24-year-old Marquin Williams and 21-year-old Randy Mackey is responsible for the July 2nd murder of Gareth Pyfrom. He was ambushed by 2 gunmen as he was about to go into a pool party at a home on Marshall Road. Williams and Mackey were not required to plead during their court appearance before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt. Bail was denied, and both men returned to court on October 10th for voluntary bill of indictment papers. Police are credited with at least 4 major drug busts this year, prompting questions about the rise in cocaine seizures. Our Jamila Missick takes a look at the numbers tonight.
Large-scale cocaine busts seem to be on the rise this year. This as police seized over $10 million worth of cocaine from a plane in Miagwan on Saturday. That bust saw 520 kilos in 18 Crocosac bags weighing 1,304 pounds. This is the second drug bust on a family island in the last few weeks. The most recent was a $9 million cocaine bust in Long Island that landed 3 Mexicans and 1 Bahamian in custody. The drugs amounted to 1,120 pounds. Meanwhile, back in February, 3 people were arrested in Bimini, found in possession of 96 kilos of cocaine with a street value of $1 million. And in January of this year, police arrested a 65-year-old man in Inagua after they found 5 kilos of suspected cocaine valued at $100,000 on a mailboat at an estimated 11.25 pounds. Last year saw police confiscate 1,137.10 pounds of cocaine, compared to bigger busts in 2021, where DEU officers seized 4,672.96 pounds of cocaine, the largest bust in recent years. That number climbed drastically from the 165.21 pounds discovered in 2020. 2019 was the lowest recorded year for cocaine busts in the past 5 years, with only 36.58 pounds confiscated. That year, 67 people were arrested, 41 for possession of cocaine and 26 for possession with intent to supply. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Missick.
Thanks much, Jamila. That heat wave continues across the country. Big question, is there any relief in sight? Well, only one man can tell us right now. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is standing by in the Weather Centre with our first look at weather tonight. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Jerome, and a happy Tuesday evening, everybody. Another nice and warm evening on the outside. It's a bit on the muggy side. Temperatures still in the upper 80s, 88 degrees after we got into the 90s today. East winds at 8 miles per hour, and those east winds is making it feel like a very warm and humid 92. Temperatures around the islands right now, it's 88 in Freeport, very warm across the island chain, 87 in Marsh Harbour, Abaco, 89 over in Alice Bimini, 88 in Great Harbour Key, as well as in Nicholstown, Andros here in the capital, 87 in Governor's Harbour. In the central Bahamas, temperatures in the 80s, upper 80s as well, 88 in Kemps Bay, 86 is Arthur Sound, Cat Island, Comatowns in Salvador, Pev 87 in Georgetown, that's in the Zumas, Deadman's Key, also 87, and in the southeast Bahamas, more 80s popping up there, 87s, Duncantown, Ragged Island, Colonel Cricket Island, Delectable Bay, Matthew Town, Inagua, Abrahams Bay, 88, and our good neighbors to the southeast, Turks and Caicos Islands, you guys are currently 88 at this hour. Satellite and radar composite, quite across the area. We still have some lingering light Saharan dust across the extreme northern islands, but a high pressure ridge out of the Atlantic continues to stretch across as that's continuing to dominate our weather. There's a frontal boundary to the north of us across north central Florida. That could pool some moisture across the extreme northern islands, so Grand Bahama, the Abacos, you guys could see 1 or 2 showers later on tonight through tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us and look at your extended forecast is still to come.
When we come back from the break, the Christian Council president takes a strong stance against international influence. And how important are wetlands to the environment? We have the answer. Plus, Grand Bahamians share what they enjoy most about being Bahamian when our news returns.
March on, Bahama.
Well, a strong message from the Christian Council president for the crowds gathered at the Independence Ecumenical Service Sunday night, challenging leaders to turn the tide and bring the land back to its Christian foundation. President Delton Fernanda urging for clarity on a vision that transcends party lines.
Our leaders must make plain the vision and goals God has given them for our country. We may all come together. We can't keep changing plans every 5 years. We've got to realize that it is more of us who are of a national perspective. I don't care what church you go to. I don't care what party you belong to. If you are Bahamian, make some noise in this place and let us lift up a spirit of oneness.
That fiery sermon continuing as Fernanda also taking a strong stance against international influence, saying following God should come above whatever potential international repercussions may come from resisting influence.
We cannot allow external forces to lead our people. We've come too far to have people who don't share the same values, who don't worship the same God, that don't lift up the same Jesus to tell us how to live. I don't care how hard the wind blows. I don't care what they threaten. This is the Bahamas, and this Bahamas will serve God.
Well, our Marlena Leonard spoke to residents about how they feel about the religious leader's comments. We'll have that coming up in our news at 7:30 with our Italia Hall. Be sure and stay tuned for that. Well, Environmental Minister Vaughan Miller leading a delegation to Cuba recently to discuss wetlands and mangroves and their importance to the environment. Berthany McDermott fills us in.
Director of the Forestry Unit in the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources, Daniel Hennick, says the concern is unregulated land use. She says while development is important, the connection to the environment is also important.
We recognize that there are pressures for development. There's also pressures for the source of livelihoods. And so in terms of that, wetlands, for example, are essential for our biodiversity. They're essential for our water quality. They're also essential for fishery sources, because between our wetlands and our mangroves, they are the estuaries of our fishery source. And
while mangroves are protected, she says the goal is to build regional partnerships to increase the ability to protect wetlands and mangroves in the Bahamas. While at the Ramsar Regional Conventions and Marine Workshop in Cuba, Hennick says they're learning of the use of wetlands in the Caribbean region.
Cuba, Jamaica, all the way down to Trinidad, we're all connected. And what we do in one country actually impacts others. And so the purpose today is that we'd have a similar goal in how we implement our activities and regulations, our framework for our wetlands, and how that then impacts or leads into us being able to complete the Sustainable Development Goals commitments and also the Ramsar strategic plan commitments.
Senior Science Officer in the Bahamas National Trust, Lindy Knowles, also attended the event. He says the discussion on transboundary issues needs to be considered.
Even though in the country we do a pretty good job of marine spatial planning, we need to partner more with our colleagues and associates and our cousins from the Caribbean to make sure that we put in policies in place that can help the long term. Similarly, like what we've done with turtles over the last 20 years, where country by country has increased regulations for protection of turtles, and now we're seeing a rebound of turtles, and we're hoping the same for sharks in the future.
Addressing diplomats in attendance, Environment Minister Vaughan Miller said the Bahamas is vulnerable to water scarcity because the fresh water reserves are limited. As a result, he said we remain vigilant to ensure any threats to the water quality concerns are adequately managed to supply safe and clean water to the population.
To meet the water demand, the Bahamas has increasingly turned to desalination plants which convert seawater into fresh water. While desalination helps ensure a reliable water supply, it is energy intensive and very costly to maintain.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as a U.S. grand jury is assembled in Georgia to consider evidence against the ex-president Donald Trump. A massive volcano erupts in Iceland, plus a U.S. team charged with making a bomb threat on a JetBlue flight to Barbados. We'll have the details when our news returns. This is Our News. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. A U.S. grand jury being assembled in Georgia is set to consider evidence against ex-President Donald Trump over efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The grand jury based in Atlanta may decide whether Trump should face criminal charges for trying to overturn his narrow loss in the state. The Republican has denied wrongdoing, calling the case a witch hunt. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Wallace, who is a Democrat, launched the investigation in early 2021. The northern Indian state of Himachal Pradesh has been witnessing heavy rainfall over the past few days, leading to flooding and landslides in the hilly terrain. The gushing water sweeping away bridges, homes, and cars and is causing widespread devastation in the state. The neighboring state is in a similar situation, and water levels of several rivers in the region have crossed the danger mark. More than a dozen people have died in the past 3 days across North India due to those heavy rains. A volcanic eruption sending lava and smoke pouring out of the side of a volcano near Iceland's capital. It comes after intense earthquake activity in the area. Local authorities said on Monday there was no imminent hazard to people in the region. The volcano is located in the country's southwest region, which is known to be a seismic hotspot. Domestic flights were delayed after the eruption created a plume of smoke over the road connecting the capital to the country's largest airport. While a 6.6 magnitude earthquake reported in the Atlantic Ocean on Monday afternoon, it was reportedly felt in several Caribbean islands. The Puerto Rico Seismic Network said the earthquake occurred at approximately 4:28 in the afternoon. The epicenter of this quake was at latitude 20.1 north and longitude 61 west at a depth of 10 kilometers. In this report, the network said there was no warning or watch for tsunami for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And finally, a 16-year-old American teen who disrupted an international flight at the Grantley Adams International Airport was granted $10,000 bail when he appeared in court charged in connection with the incident. Shiloh Cecil Bellot will reappear in court next week on the charge of behaving in a manner that interfered with the discharging of functions and duties of a crew member by uttering the words "bomb the plane" while on board JetBlue Flight B662. On his first appearance before Douglas Frederick at the district's magistrate's court, the teenager pleaded not guilty to the charge. Still to come on Our News Today in History, find out interesting facts about the day that was July 11th. And then in Our News at 7:30, a temporary gun amnesty program is getting the thumbs up from a crime consultant. Find out why. Politicians and dignitaries celebrate in golden style at last night's state reception. Our Italia Hall has the recap, all coming up when Our News returns. Welcome back to Our News. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was July 11th.
On this day in Bahamian history, 2010, Colton Harris Moore, also known as the Barefoot Bandit, was captured by Bahamian authorities on Harbor Island. Moore was a suspect in a string of criminal offenses committed in multiple states in the United States, including identity theft, burglary, illegal entry, flying a plane without a pilot's license, and attempting to elude police. He received the title the Barefoot Bandit for carrying out some of his crimes while barefoot. On July 4, 2010, a Cessna airplane was stolen from Bloomington, Indiana. Harris is believed to have been responsible for the theft when the plane was found crashed on the shore of Great Abaco. Shortly after, there was a string of robberies on the island, which included the theft of a 44-foot power boat. The boat was later located at Harbor Island, where the Royal Bahamas Police Force had tracked down Moore. After being stopped, he attempted to flee, but the boat's engine was shot out by the police. Before being apprehended, he threw his laptop into the sea and pointed a gun to his head. However, the police were able to talk him out of committing suicide and surrendering. He told police he had planned to flee to Cuba and then to the Turks and Caicos Islands. After being taken into custody, he was taken to New Providence, where he was placed on trial and pled guilty to charges of illegally entering the country and illegally landing a plane. He was sentenced to either 3 months in jail or a $300 fine. His mother wired the money to the U.S. Embassy in Nassau, which was paid to the court. That night, Moore left the Bahamas to answer charges in the United States. And finally, in 2020, 3 additional cases of COVID-19 was found in Grand Bahama. This brought the island's confirmed cases to 6. These newly confirmed cases were all females, 2 of which had a travel history, while the other did not. They were isolated, and this brought the confirmed cases of COVID to 111, with 11 active at that time.
Independence Day, many showed off their Bahamian pride in so many different ways. Our Talia Hall took to the streets to speak with some Grand Bahamians who shared what they enjoy most about our country.
The Bahamas has many unique factors, from its beautiful waters, Jankanoo music, dialect, and dishes. These Grand Bahamians sharing what they love most about the Bahamas.
Well, I love the peace that we have and the serenity, and I love the beautiful beaches and being outdoors, even though it's so hot today.
You're free, freedom of speech. You could go anywhere without being scared, afraid. The Bahamas is the best place to be at this time in the season.
We can serve God anywhere, any place in the open, and we can read our Bibles. I mean, it's just an awesome place to be. Not just for the sunshine and sea, but for the hospitality.
And as for their favorite Bahamian foods,
definitely kong for this, definitely, or kong salad. I like tuna and grits and stew fish and johnny cake.
And it's no secret that Bahamians love to dance.
The hula hoop, the cha-cha-cha.
Yeah, the wiggle in it, you see? There you go.
And a popular Bahamian quote.
If they see me boy, I'd be like, how'd it go, boy? It's like an abbreviation for like, how it going, bro, you know?
Now, music has always been a big part of Bahamian culture. Here are a few top songs for these residents.
I got a couple of, what that one called? Said you come, she gonna marry me. Marry the Garland? I think that's the name of it. Yeah, that's probably top 3. It was a person who sing, oh, lo, 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 la, 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 la. That person, but I don't know the name.
Going down Wilmer Road, going down Wilmer Road, going down Wilmer Road. Ain't gonna hurt nobody.
I love all of them. That's the thing. My favorite artist. Oh God, you want to do that to me? There's so many. You know, we have KB and Bodine and Wendy and you know Julian, and I just love them all.
And thanks a lot. A great report there. Now, to watch that story again and for all of today's top stories, be sure and visit ournews.bs. That does it for Our News at 7. Joining us now, our Talia Hall, who provided that great piece out of Grand Bahama. I laughed the entire time. What a great piece. Grand Bahamians really got into the spirit.
Yes, they really enjoyed it. And to hear their favorite foods and music, yeah.
Fantastic. Now, I know this was your first independence in the capital. How did you spend it?
It was good. I got a chance to go to the state reception.
I know you all gussied up.
Nice. It was nice. It was really nice. You know, I've never experienced that before, so
I can't wait to see the story later tonight.
Well, stay tuned to 7:30. Thanks so much, Jerome. Well, the fight continues against crime, and cleanup crews are busy at work. This as lots of trash is left behind after the Independence holiday. Here are your latest headlines.
A fight against crime, first tonight on Our News Live at 7:30. An amnesty program soon to be launched for people to turn in illegal guns. A well-known consultant speaks. Plus, making progress. Victims of domestic violence will soon have a shelter. We'll tell you all about it. Also, work crews are stretched. This is tons of trash left in New Providence following the independence celebrations. And later, a golden affair as government officials as well as world leaders gathered at Government House for the country's Independence Day reception. Our news live at 7:30 starts in a moment. Welcome to our news and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. While a temporary program allowing residents to yield firearms to authorities without punishment is in the works. In the wake of this, we spoke to a prominent staple in the community and consultant for the Ministry of National Security. Our Joshua Williams has his thoughts.
National Security Minister Wayne Munro revealing a temporary gun amnesty program set to be rolled out later this week, which allows residents to surrender firearms without the possibility of prosecution. Crime consultant in the Ministry of National Security, Carlos Reed, says he's on board with the program.
I believe that anything that cuts the stem of weapons in this country need to be supported.
A local daily sharing that over 90% of all murders were committed with firearms. Reed believes that while effective, an amnesty program that provides compensation will bear more fruit.
Persons are not going to turn in their guns for nothing. We are thingsy set of people. If we have the incentive behind it, I believe that it could be more effective, where we're going to buy back the guns.
In the past, concerns have been raised about individuals using the program to extort government for money. Reed says while this is a possibility, the program has shown more good than bad.
There are always going to be components that's going to bring the negative aspect to it. But the main thing is that we need to create initiatives that actually help us in the long run.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
Well, quick work by police has resulted in the arrest of a 50-year-old man responsible for a sexual assault and burglary early this morning. Police say they arrested the man who has been in custody for similar offenses just after 1 p.m. in the area of Mount Tabor Estates. The incident happened around 1:30 this morning at the 82-year-old woman's home in Centerville. Police say the victim was asleep at her home when she was awoken and assaulted by the man. Now, investigations are continuing. A 39-year-old man is behind bars after being accused of sexually abusing his own daughter. The man's name has been withheld to protect his daughter's identity. Prosecutors say the man molested his 15-year-old daughter in August of 2021. He allegedly had sex with his now 17-year-old daughter on June 27th. The resident of New Providence was not required to enter pleas to the charges of incest. When he stood before Magistrate Shaker Seville, bail was denied and he's due back in court in November to receive voluntary bill of indictment papers. Well, shelters are on the way for victims of domestic violence. We learned more about the initiative with the Ministry of Social Services and the Royal Bahamas Police Force Domestic Violence Unit at a consultative forum held recently to discuss possible changes to legislation around sexual offenses, efforts, and to prevent violence, and the progress of the Domestic Violence Unit. Well, Inspector Kendra Wallace-Wim shared the importance of making sure the efforts are not too Nassau-centric.
It's just not New Providence. We have to look at this holistically. This program, this safe house is coming, and the second one that's coming right on stream from social services. We look at Freeport, Grand Bahama. You look at all the other islands. So how you have to be thinking now? We have to be thinking, this is a thing that has to spread out, not just in New Providence. No, we have to spread our wings.
We also caught up with Social Services Minister Obi Wilshcombe, who gave us a breakdown of where we could expect to see these first shelters appear, as well as their efforts to educate the public on ongoing projects.
3 new ones.
3 on New Providence? Or
Yeah, 3 on New Providence.
Any in Family Islands?
1, Grand Bahama. The truth is, many are unaware of what we do. I mean, many of you would not have understood today that the shelters are being prepared now, and that we're getting more facilities for women in distress, women with difficulties. You won't know that, and so we're putting together a program, but we want to be very sensitive. We don't really want to seek cheap publicity on the backs of those who struggle, on the backs of those who need, on the backs of the poor. So what we're trying to do is get our message out as a part of education, as a part of allowing Bahamians to know that we're there, we care, we provide support.
All right, well, we've got a whole lot more to get to in a moment, but for now, a quick check on the forecast with meteorologist Greg Thompson, who is in the Weather Center. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Natalia, and welcome everybody for a quick check on conditions outside our studios and around the islands. It is a warm and muggy night outside. Temperatures are in the upper 80s, 88 degrees outside our studios. Winds are out of the east at 8 miles per hour, and your field strike temperature, a very warm and humid 92. Satellite and radar composite, quiet across the area. We had some showers and some isolated thunderstorms across the Grand Bahama, the Bimini area, as well as the Abacos. Even had 1 or 2 spotty showers and isolated thunderstorms here in the capital. Most of that has dissipated, but we expect conditions to remain quiet tonight. We could see 1 or 2 more isolated showers, mainly across the northwest Bahamas tomorrow. That's a quick check on conditions outside our studios and around the island. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, a strong message from the president of the Bahamas Christian Council. We have reaction. Plus, cleanup crews are hard at work. This as tons of trash was left behind from the independence celebrations. Also, lots of people attended the Independence State reception last evening at Government House. We have the full story when our news returns.
At Doctors Hospital, our lamp just got brighter. The Loyalty Advantage membership program now has 3 unique plans to choose from. From Lamp Prepaid with free prime care visits and service line discounts, Lamp Insured with copay waivers and 0 upfront collections at the ER and inpatient services, or our new Lamp Access, a free plan that offers 10% off labs, pharmacy, and imaging. Lamp has a plan for everyone. To sign up, visit our website or give us a call. Doctors Hospital, trusted and best care now.
At the ecumenical service on Sunday night, Bahamas Christian Council President Bishop Delton Fernandez urged the country to turn the tide back to our Christian values, even if it comes to the expense of potential international backlash. Our Marlena Leonard asked Bahamians how they felt about this sentiment in this report.
I don't care how hard the wind blows. I don't care what they threaten. This is the Bahamas, and this Bahamas will serve God.
President of the Bahamas Christian Council, Bishop Delton Fernandez, had a strong message for Bahamians during the ecumenical service of the independence celebrations at Clifford Park.
We cannot allow external forces to lead our people.
We asked Bahamians how they felt about the bishop's call to action.
I feel great about it because I think he bring a good message across that to let the Bahamian know where they came from and to where they are now. So I think what he was saying was right because, you know, they always listen to other foreign countries instead of getting into their own independent nation, you know, because we're supposed to have our own culture, not follow other people.
Nation that we are, growing up on the values personally that I had, I agree with what he says. And also, he's speaking from a term of how most pastors are. Most pastors live by Bible. They can't speak on their own as much as they would like to, and they may have a personal thing, they're bound to the Bible. So
one person said that while it's important for the country to stick to its values, there is a place for international diplomacy.
I agree on the Christian values, but I feel the international relations is very important. We have to listen to hear what's going on and what they're saying about us, how we can improve. Because without feedback, how we would know to do better.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
All right, thanks, Marlena. Well, the country hosting a state reception in honor of the 50th independence, attending last night's event at Government House were dignitaries and officials from across the world. Among them, the United Kingdom Minister for the Americas and the Caribbean, David Rutley, who says he wouldn't have wanted to miss the country's golden anniversary.
It's a huge celebration, 50 amazing years. We've got very proud shared history. We share our culture, we share our legal system, our education, and there's a lot to be proud of. We're very proud of all the achievements that have taken place here in the Bahamas over 50 years.
Now, the United States also supporting the event.
It's extremely important for us to have a partnership. The U.S. and the Bahamas are so similar, and we share such a common origin. Especially in 2023, I think it's extremely important for us to remember our partnership and celebrate this great day.
Did last night's reception. I'll have a full recap coming up later on in the newscast. It's a story you won't want to miss. Well, over the holiday weekend, large crowds gathered at a popular beaches throughout New Providence, which created tons of trash, in some instances left behind until the next day. Executive Chairman for Beaches and Parks, Mikkel Bonnaby, says teams are working despite being stretched thin as a result of the busy weekend.
Our teams were working throughout all of New Providence trying to get the island in tip-top shape. That culminated with our teams being stretched to capacity. Clifford Park, Independence Day celebrations. The next day, we had the family event on Clifford Park. On the same night of Independence, we had the Junkanoo group rush out. And so I think the team did a wonderful job.
In addition to beaches, Bonnaby also addressed a viral video of trash on Bay Street following the People's Rush Junkanoo Parade.
There was a video that floated around social media showing on Bay Street some garbage that was left over half an hour after the parade. 2 hours after the parade, everything was cleaned up. And so our teams are now dealing with all of the beaches, bringing the country back to normality, to the standard that they've grown accustomed to. But what we would also like to do is encourage members of the public to also help us in this effort and trying to keep our spaces and our green spaces clean.
When our news comes back from the break, we take a look at the country's 50th anniversary cake displayed at the Independence State reception last evening. We have the full story.
The NFL hosts its first ever flag football camp in the Bahamas, and our MP partners with the pro basketball player to hold a basketball camp in Grand Bahama. Don't go anywhere, our sports is up next.
And light showers in eastern New Providence this afternoon, but is there any more rain in the forecast? Well, Greg is back with the answer when our news returns. Stay with us.
Today's sports update is sponsored by Michelob Ultra, distributed in the Bahamas by Jimmy's Wines and Spirits.
This is our news. Welcome back. The NFL hosts a flag football camp in the Bahamas, and we take you to a basketball camp in my home, Grand Bahama. Here's Tej Adderley with a check on sports. Tej?
NFL flag football is expanded to the Caribbean, and the Bahamas is the first stop. Our Sasha Lightburn was at the camp, which is held today at the Thomas A. Robinson Stadium.
Back in June, officials from the National Football League announced that they wanted to bring football to all corners of the globe. And today, they did just that, making the Bahamas the first country in the region where the NFL flag program has been launched. We spoke with two of the participants, Christopher Monroe and Jade Knowles.
The goal is to make it to the NFL, but one of the goals are to probably, further my skills and probably get recognized.
I am going to take advantage of enhancing my skills, but knowing in my age, I am going to also try and learn what I can to be a better coach, to be a better referee, so I can see the sport go further than it is.
The NFL's flag global ambassador is Phoebe Schechter, who says the Bahamas has a lot of untapped talent.
But the amount of talent that's come forward, the amount of people that are so passionate about playing football and that have openly said they want to go and further their careers in flag football, right? We're about developing people and trying to give people as many opportunities as possible.
Once the clinic ends today, the flag football season for both adults and kids is expected to officially launch and begin in late August. Reporting for our sports, I'm Sasha Lightborn.
Moving on to Grand Bahama, a professional basketball player partnered with the MP for Pine Ridge to teach young kids basketball and life skills. Ginger Moxie, MP for Pine Ridge, partnered with Kentwan Smith, a professional basketball player from Grand Bahama, to bring a basketball camp to children in her constituency.
Kentwan Smith, he reached out, and of course we wanted to ensure that he was able to work with the kids in the community.
Smith is a veteran pro player. He's proud of his camp.
We just have a little basketball camp for the Pine Ridge community. Me and my cousin right here.
Smith has been playing basketball for a long time, and he's been on the national team, so it's great to see him giving back. That'll do it for sports today. I'm Tej Adderley.
Still ahead on our news tonight, one to remember. That's how attendees at the Independence State reception are describing the annual event. And a check on temperatures around the islands with meteorologist Greg Thompson when our news continues.
Welcome back to our news. We've had sunny conditions except for a shower or two today, but what will the rest of the week look like? Well, meteorologist Greg Thompson is back in the Weather Center. Greg.
Yeah, thanks again, Natalia, and welcome back, everybody, for our final check out weather. We take a look at our water vapor. We have some moisture still in place, mainly across central and South Florida, actually, and some of that hanging out across the northern Bahamas. We could see a couple of isolated showers as this is actually associated with a trough and a surface front that is across that area. Dry air mass invading the central and southeast portions of the Bahamas. We still have a slight trace of some Saharan dust, but we do expect a second batch to be moving into us by tomorrow. So looking for some hazy skies and dry conditions throughout the remainder of the week. Taking a look at our radar and satellite composite, showers and isolated thunderstorms with that front across north central Florida. Couple isolated showers across the extreme northwest Bahamas, even here in the capital. Couple of tropical waves moving across the tropical belt, not showing any signs of development, and the tropics remain quiet. But the National Hurricane Center will continue to watch an area that's expected to develop just to the southeast of Bermuda over the next couple of days. Forecast map showing isolated showers near the capital early today, and most of that will be waning. At moisture with the front still to the north of us, another couple isolated showers expected through tomorrow, and then by Thursday, still quiet conditions across our area as well. Boating forecast, if you plan on doing that tonight through tomorrow, your winds will be southeast to south at 10 to 15 knots in the northwest Bahamas. Seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. Your low tide will be at 10-19 tonight. For the central and southeastern islands, a caution flag for you guys down there. High risk of rip currents, especially for you swimmers. East to southeast winds, 15 to 20 knots. Wave heights running 4 to 6 feet over open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast, quiet and hot weather will continue throughout the remainder of the week. That high pressure will be at the surface, continuing to dominate our weather. And as I mentioned, we expect some Saharan dust to be getting back in here, so hazy and hot conditions with heat indices in the triple digits, urging you to exercise caution if you plan on doing anything on the outdoors, and make sure you stay hydrated. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Great advice. While the lead up to the country's 58th independence was filled with loads of cultural events, which many Bahamians supported, on Independence Day, a state reception was held at Government House, and it did not disappoint. Let's take a look. It was a night of elegance and culture on the grounds of Government House as many gathered for the 50th Independence Day reception. Chair of the National Independence Secretariat, Leslie Miller-Bright, says the events don't stop here and will continue over the next year.
Today, an amazing event again. Bahamians out, they're here to support, we're still celebrating. And so I truly want to say thank you to the Bahamian public that came out and supported each and every one of our events.
These attendees describing the event as one to remember and sharing some of their proud moments over the past 50 years.
You know, the Golden Girls, the Golden Knights, I mean, that's two right there. We can also read more recently, you know, we just opened up a port, world-class port.
Yes, I'm extremely proud of our government, and particularly where it has taken our people from the 73 election up to the present moment.
50 years ago, I just got married. Husband deceased me now, but I'm here. But struggle along the way, everything was great.
We are most grateful that you have all come. I hope you've enjoyed it. And now the road begins to the next 50. Happy Independence, Bahamas.
All right, such a great event, and to see that story again, of course, you can visit ournews.bs. And with that, we thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.